What's up, Raider Nation? Welcome to the TRU RAIDER Podcast. And today, what I want to talk about is that we got some bad news up ahead. The Raiders got a very major problem going on. Raiders have a very, very major problem going on, right? Because if you've been following my page, right, what you have seen is that we are at a point where we don't want to win any more games, right? It's pointless for the Raiders to win any more games. There was a point in the season where I thought we should not tank because it's bad for a lot of things. And we've gotten to a point where we got 3 games left. Right now, we are listed as the number 2 overall pick. And if we just lose out for the rest of the year, we get that number 1 pick. We can go get a quarterback. That way we actually have a legitimate quarterback for once. We have not drafted a quarterback in the first round since 2006. Jamarcus Russell, the biggest bust of all time. And so right now I want to talk with you guys about what we got coming up ahead. That's going to be some bad news if that is the goal for Raider Nation. I know for me and many of the people that I know, we're all on the same page with this. We need to lose. Winning right now. If we win 1 game, we move back to pick number 5 or 6, I believe, right? And that puts us in a position where we're not getting a Fernando Mendoza. We're not getting a quarterback that's legitimate, right? Dante Moore is like the only other quarterback I would even consider in the first round. I've been looking at a lot of tape. I don't really like Ty Simpson. A lot of people have been telling me Diego Pavia. Let's get Diego Pavia, right? He was the runner-up for the Heisman. Diego Pavia is from Albuquerque, and I'm from New Mexico, right? And we do not produce pro athletes. And so I'm rooting for the dude, but there's a couple issues with him. One is behavior, man. After, getting second place for the Heisman, he was posting stuff on social media saying F the voters and all this stuff. And then his brothers have regularly gotten kicked out of games or arrested at games. And it's too much drama, man. And I'm rooting for the dude to do well because he's from my home state. But I don't think that Vegas is a very good fit for him at all. So let's go ahead and get into this, right? Because we have one huge major issue, right? Because our schedule up ahead, we're playing the Houston Texans, which I'm not worried about that. That's the best defense in the league. We got, CJ Stroud is going to have a great game. I'm not worried about this Houston game. I am not, right? We're more than likely not going to go out there and get a win against the Houston Texans right now, especially because they are definitely fighting to make sure that they stay in the playoff hunt. And so they're going to be guns blazing, right? Then we play the Giants the Sunday after Christmas, right? In that game, okay, I think that Jackson Dart is a good quarterback. He's missing his main weapons. He doesn't have Cam Scatterbo at running back. He doesn't have Malik Neighbors at wide receiver. And they're struggling, and they are actually the only team that's drafting in front of us right now. And so we're at a point where we're number 2 and they're number 1. And the thing is that somebody's going to fall back to 5 or 6 after that game because somebody's got to win unless we tie. I don't even know what happens if we tie. But the thing is, man, is that I really do not think that we're going to be beating the Giants at all. The Giants are a team that is, even though they have the same record as us and they're missing their main weapons, they're playing better football than us. I've been watching them because I like Jackson Dart, man. And I've also been rooting for them to win because if they win, then they fall back and then we move up, right? And they're playing better football than the Raiders, for sure, right? But the last game of the season is our trap game. This is the game I'm worried about because if you have not heard the news, the Kansas City Chiefs are out of the playoffs. They are officially out of the playoffs, and Patrick Mahomes had a knee injury, and I did not wish knee injuries or any kind of injuries on anybody. Ron Just with the heart me salute. Thank you. I don't want to see those kind of injuries happening. Salute to Navman. Good to see one of the model Raiders in the building. But we're in a position where Patrick Mahomes, he injured his knee, right? And he tore his ACL and his, I'm is it LCL or what is it called, right? So the thing is that right here, don't underestimate the Raiders' ability to F their situation up and play out of a good draft pick. And I don't underestimate that. We had the same thing last year, right? Where we're like getting down the stretch and we're thinking, okay, cool, we're going to go ahead and get a good draft pick. And then all of a sudden we win some meaningless PCL. Thank you. We win some meaningless games and then boom, we fall way back. I mean, to 6, but still out of range of a quarterback, right? And we're going to be going up against Gardner Minshew, right? Gardner Minshew. And the problem is that Gardner Minshew has played well at quarterback basically everywhere else except for Las Vegas. And that's a big problem, right? That is a big problem for us because Gardner Minshew is going to play better for the Kansas City Chiefs, yes, right? But Andy Reid is petty. Andy Reid is super petty when it comes to the Raiders. If you've been watching the last couple of years in this misery like how I have, Andy Reid, ever since John Gruden, we beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead and we did a lap in the bus around the stadium. And after that, there's this whole level of petty that got opened up from Andy Reid where they did that ring around the rosy play against us. They did this year, they did that. There's the snap count, right? On 4th down. And Patrick Mahomes says, see, this never effing works. And then boom, they snap the ball, right? And in a game that they beat us 31-0. Right. So these are games that they were beating us and they didn't have to do anything petty. They didn't have to do any trick plays. They didn't have to do anything weird. And they went out there and they did that kind of shit anyway. So I would not put it past Andy Reid that if we're in position where we lose to the Giants and we move up to the number 1 pick and Fernando Mendoza can already, see himself in the silver and black, and then boom, Andy Reid and Gardner Minshew go and F that up for us. Like, come on, man. That is a huge, huge possibility. And so I was looking at this, right? Because little ass boy Gardner Minshew, that's right. And the thing that I've been looking at with this, man, is that's the game that scares me the most, and I haven't really seen anybody else talking about it. Maybe they are, but this is something that really, really concerns me because when Patrick Mahomes was there and they were still fighting to be in the playoffs, because look, I love the fact that the Chiefs are not in the playoffs, right? I absolutely love that. But when they were playing against the Chargers, I was like, man, we really need the Chiefs to win this game because we want them to be fighting for a playoff spot. We want them to be playing against us and we're sitting at the number 1 pick and they have to beat us in order to get in because that is the best case scenario for the Raiders. But that's not, right? Gunsmoke in the building, salute. That's not the scenario for us, right? Instead, they're out of the playoffs. Who knows who's even going to play? Travis Kelce might not even play. He might just be done for his career. What are they fighting for? Do they just want to go and kick our asses just to, right? Does Gardner Minshew want to prove something to the Raiders? Do the Chiefs want to still prove that, yeah, we're out of the playoffs, but we're still going to beat the shit out of the Raiders? Like, what is that going to look like? Because if we win one more game, I think that we're out of the running for a quarterback. And trading up to get a quarterback right now is just a super bad move for us. It really is. I wanted to trade up and get CJ Stroud. We didn't do that. I wanted to trade up and get Jane Daniels. We didn't do that. And last year I'm like, look, we need to not trade up. And this year we need to not trade up, right? And so I'm going to go ahead and pull up the Tankathon list, right? So the Tankathon, and that's what I have behind me over here on TikTok. But we got the Giants are in front of us, and then there's us at number 2, and then the Tennessee Titans are behind us. And even though we beat them, they're behind us because of strength of schedule. So their strength of schedule is stronger than ours, and so that puts us drafting in front of them. And then we got the Browns, the Jets, and the Cardinals right after that. So let's say we win one game, right? And we go to 3 wins. Well, the Cardinals are still going to be behind us because they still have stronger schedule. But then the Jets, the Browns, and the Titans all jump in front of us. So we drop down to number 5. We drop down to number 5 if we win one game. And that's huge, right? Because Fernando Mendoza is not going to be available. And I don't think Dante Moore is even going to be available at that point, especially because uh, the Browns, they got a big situation over there at quarterback. They're not sure if hedeursanders is going to be their answer for the future or not. It's been pretty clear that they're not really super attached to having him over there. They had 5 quarterbacks. They drafted him in the 5th round, and he's played pretty good, but it's been hit and miss over there, right? So they're probably going to end up getting a quarterback if they're up that high. The Jets are going to get a quarterback, and I mean, who knows who wants to trade up? Who knows, right? And so really the only way for us to secure a quarterback is to be a top 2 pick. But realistically, if we want our guy, we got to be number 1 pick. We absolutely have to. So let's go ahead and look at the schedules of these other teams, right? Because I was thinking, okay, well, if we end up slipping up and winning a game, right? Like maybe they're going to lose some games and we're going to be in position where, okay, well, it's not going to be so bad and they're going to fall back as well. And that'll be that, right? So if we look at the New York Giants, the remainder of their schedule, this weekend they play against the Vikings. The Vikings with JJ McCarthy are all of a sudden looking good, right? They're all of a sudden looking good. And they went out there and they beat the Cowboys in a shootout of a game. I don't see the Giants going out there and beating the Vikings right now. Yo, I'm back. Sorry about that. I don't even know how long I was gone, man. I was over here sharing screen. Um, okay, we still got a couple people in the building. That's good. Hopefully I wasn't off for too long, right? So basically the Giants are probably only going to beat us, right? That's probably the only game that they end up beating us. And so it's really important for us to lose that. So if we look at the next schedule down the line, let's go ahead and look at the Titans. So the Titans, their remainder of schedule, if my computer would work, I'd be able to look at this, man. Guess I have to go into this. Right now, their last 3 games, they're playing against the Kansas City Chiefs, which is going to be led by Gardner Minshew. So Gardner Minshew and the Chiefs. Hold up. That's crazy. Okay. Well, I'm not even going to pay attention to that. So they could go out there and maybe beat the Chiefs with Gardner Minshew because we don't really know what that squad's going to look like. I know Gardner Minshew had the opportunity to win that game for them and keep their playoff dreams alive, and he went and he threw a pick, a really bad pick against the Chargers and knocked them out of the playoffs, right? But then they're playing against the New Orleans Saints, which are actually, they're kind of stacking a couple of wins. Tyler So's looking pretty good out there. And so they're probably not going to win that. That's the maybe game. And then they're going to play against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So pretty likely the Titans aren't going to win another game. And that's a huge problem for us because if we get one win, they're going to be in front of us for sure. And, there's rumors that they actually want Fernando Mendoza and then they might move off of Cam Ward. I don't know if that's true, but either way, anybody that's in front of us, even if they have a quarterback, they're going to be looking to trade back for somebody that does want Fernando Mendoza. And then it'll probably be the Jets that are probably going to move up because they have the most draft capital and they're reckless. And the Jets like to ruin people's careers over there, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the next schedule. So the next schedule that we got, let's go ahead and talk about the Browns schedule, right? Because they're behind us. They got 3 wins. But the Browns have the Buffalo Bills left. hedeursanders and the Browns are not going to go in there into Buffalo and beat the Bills. I don't see that happening. Then they're playing against Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. And the Steelers right now are they're battling to get that, to win their division, right? And so yet again, they're probably not going to win that game. And then they're going to go against the Cincinnati Bengals, right? And the Bengals are really a struggling team right now. There's a possibility that the Browns could squeak out a win over there, but I don't really actually see that being the case, right? So I wouldn't count on the Browns winning another game. So like I said before, if we win a game, Browns go in front of us. So I just see problem and then problem and then problem and then problem. And then I think I only got one more right now on the list to share screen on, and that would be the Jets. So let's go ahead and look at the Jets because the Jets, they have 3 wins. They're behind us. But also they're probably one of the teams that's most likely going to need a quarterback. They're going to be going against the New Orleans Saints this Sunday, right? And I'm hoping that they win that game because then they fall back even further. They're less of a threat to, the quarterback race, right? Because that's what we're in right now. We're in a quarterback race. And if the Raiders cannot secure a quarterback, our future is looking dismal, right? There was a time about a month ago or so that I was like, you know what, man, I don't know if we should get a quarterback. I think that we need to build the trenches. We need to do this. We need to do that. And we're really in a position where if we don't get a quarterback like now, there's going to be a pretty bad ripple effect that I think is going to happen to the nation. I saw other content creators talking about that, like basically all the fans that came in during the Derek Carr era are just going to be so done with this team by then that they're going to leave, right? And I've even seen in the chat fans that have been fans since the 80s that are like, I'm done with this, man. I can't do this anymore. And so like if Mark Davis really wants to hold on to a fan base, which he does really put emphasis that that's important to him, then he needs to get a quarterback. And if we have the number 1 overall pick, not only do we get to get a quarterback, but then it's more inviting for a head coach to come in here that's like, all right, I can, get the number 1 quarterback and then I can build this thing. Because right now we have a problem with being able to retain coaches. That is actually quite the issue for us. And so, I mean, I know that if I was looking at a head coaching job and it was like, hey, the Raiders is available, it's like, I'd be pretty damn worried, right? And PB&J lover, yeah, Raiders live off nostalgia. That's exactly where we're at, right? I mean, shit, man. I've been a fan since 2001, and I've only seen us have, 4 seasons over 500? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's bad, dude. It's bad. So then after they play the Saints, they're going to play the Patriots and then the Bills, right? So the Jets are not going to win those games. I highly doubt it unless, the Bills or New England is already in position where whether they win or lose, it doesn't matter. And then they might sit their starters and then they squeak out a win, right? But really what it comes down to is we need to absolutely lose, because if we go out there and we stupidly beat the Giants, we're screwed, right? If we go out there and the Chiefs, because I mean, let's face it, Pete Carroll is going to be gone after this year, right? I mean, even NBC is talking about like, it's looking like they're going to part ways, right? They're going to come to some agreement. And so if Pete Carroll is not going to be here, then he doesn't give a shit if we're going to get that number 1 pick or not. He doesn't give a shit what's going to happen to us in the future. he's going to be looking to, well, I want to finish on a high note, because honestly, Pete Carroll is not going to have another head coaching job in the NFL, period. I doubt that even college football would pick him up at this point. I mean, the thing about Pete Carroll right now is he's starting to resemble his age, and there's like a lot of times in the chat where I'll see somebody pop in or in the comments on videos and stuff, or on Facebook where, people pop in and they say, look, man, I'm a Seahawks fan. And this is the exact problem that we had with Pete Carroll, is that he gets an idea in his head and he gets very stuck on that. He's really attached to his certain guys. And even though they're performing horribly, he just sticks with them. And that's exactly what we got going on right now, because if you look at the mistakes that Pete Carroll has made, and I'm going to do another video probably this weekend. I might wait till next week. We'll see. But it's going to be around all of the big mistakes that Pete Carroll has made this year, right? And I mean, we got roster stuff all the way from Christian Wilkins to Amari Cooper. He got to trade a third-round pick for his quarterback. So he had a one-up on AP, right? Because AP didn't get anything that he wanted, right? He got to go out there and trade for his guy, bring in his quarterback, and then there's like these pieces on the roster that just, they make no sense, right? We brought in Tyler Lockett so Geno Smith would have his security blanket, right? Well, that didn't work out very well, right? But we're still starting him. Why are we starting Tyler Lockett? Why? We've been eliminated from the playoffs for several weeks. It's obviously not working out very well between Geno Smith and Tyler Lockett. Why is Jack Besh and Dante Thornton Jr. not getting those reps? Because we need to be building up these rookies. But Pete Carroll has shown that he does not want to build up these rookies. Vinny says, take Genty, Bowers, Tucker, Crosby out for season. See who we have playing. Well, and that's the thing, right? Is that we should be looking at player development, right? But getting our veterans to like be happy about sitting down is going to be difficult, right? Because they want to go out there and play. But at the same time, we end up getting some big injury where Brock Bowers messes up his knee again and he's out for half of next year, then we got a pretty big problem, right? Crosby's also been playing on a knee injury and he just goes and goes and goes, Energizer Bunny, and he'll play himself until he gets hurt. But Pete Carroll doesn't care about that kind of shit. Pete Carroll played Brock Bowers through that knee injury and didn't even phase him. It didn't matter to him at all. And he's like, well, he didn't want to sit out. It's like, come on, bro. Like, does he really get that choice? Baparat, if Raiders have the lowest win percentage since 2000, can it be Pete Carroll issue or is it the franchise? I've been seeing people talking about like that statistically that the Raiders are like probably close to being the worst team in history, like worse than teams like the Browns and the Lions when they went defeated, not undefeated, when they went defeated the entire season and didn't win a game, right? Like statistically, we look worse than that. I don't even know what we average points per game. We're averaging 15 points per game, but we put up a goose egg against the Eagles, and so that had to have dropped. I mean, it is so bad that it has to be a Pete Carroll thing, right? And yes, the franchise thing, I get that, and some people say, well, Al Davis sued the NFL and won, and that's why, we're cursed, right? Well, that probably plays some kind of role. But how are we gonna be in a position where under Josh McDaniels, we had a team, that was just fighting and scrapping after the whole Gruden thing and the Henry Ruggs thing, and we had, Richie B as our interim head coach, and it was like this team was on fire. And then we fall off a cliff with Josh McDaniels, right? And then the following year, Josh McDaniels, it's even worse. And okay, well, it's so bad that we bring in Antonio Pierce, and then Antonio Pierce gets these guys on fire and it's looking good. And then the following year, it looks worse. And then we're like, well, shit, we need to get rid of AP. He's the problem. Bring in Pete Carroll, seasoned coach. We make Chip Kelly the highest paid offensive coordinator ever in the NFL. And it looks even worse. And it's like, well, hold up. Like, what's even happening, right? Because, yeah, we looked horrible with Gardner Minshew and Luke Getsy, but another piece of that is that we were a 2-win team all the way down to the end. All the way down to the end. Yes, and not to mention getting rid of Jacoby Myers. It's such a miss right there, right? And then we start looking at like, well, shit, is this a John Spytek issue, right? Because why did John Spytek not want to hold on to Jacoby Myers? What was the big thing there? And then we look at, well, shit, well, what's going on with these draft picks, right? Because we got these draft picks that are like, second round, we trade back and we end up with Jack Besh. And it's like, Jack Besh, he didn't even have a very good season. He just had a very good Senior Bowl. It's like, okay, well, maybe they know something about him that we don't, and this guy's going to be a dog. He's a second round wide receiver, right? He's going to be good. He's going to be good. It's going to work out. Nope. He's not even hardly getting. So when he's targeted, he's actually making plays, but he doesn't get targeted. He does not get targeted like at all. And he doesn't get nearly enough playing time. Then they said, you know what? Dante Thornton Jr., 4th round wide receiver. We're actually going to make him the starter. He had an amazing, training camp. Nope. That dude, they said, oh yeah, he's running these good routes and all this. No, he's not. No, he was running against corners like Caillou Blue Kelly. And they're going, oh wow, Dante Thornton Jr. is like an amazing wide. No, our secondary sucks. That's what's going on. That's why he had a good camp, because our secondary sucks. That dude cannot, 6'5", can't catch a 50-50 ball to save his life, right? And then, if we look at our 3rd round picks, okay, Darian Porter Jr., this guy only played 1 year as a corner, right? He was a wide receiver that switched over to corner. He had a pretty good year, but even during the draft, it was like, was that kind of a reach? Did we get that dude a little bit too high? And then we give Caillou Blue Kelly the start. And then Caillou Blue Kelly gets ranked as the worst corner in the NFL. And Pete Carroll's like, nah, we're still going to start Caillou Blue Kelly, though. And anytime Darian Porter Jr. gets in the game, he plays well. And Pete Carroll's like, nah, we're still going to play Caillou Blue Kelly, though. What happened there? The refusal to play Jackson Powers Johnson at center, right? Now I'm on a tangent. Now I ended up on a tangent. I didn't even mean to go here, right? Then, Jackson Powers Johnson not being able to play center, and they're like, let's play Jordan Meredith, who's never played center before, and he sucks. And even though he's performing awful, nope, we're still going to play him. Alex Kappa comes in, plays awful. No, we're still going to play him. Oh, these rookies that we drafted in the 3rd round for offensive line, nah, they're not ready. They're not ready. Instant that they put Caleb Rogers, instead of being a healthy scratch on game day as an inactive, they put him in the game, and oh shit, he actually played really, really well. Who knew, right? They finally let Charles Grant get some snaps, even though he was an extra offensive lineman. He didn't actually get to play on the line as just a normal lineman. He was the extra offensive lineman. And he played pretty good. Pete Carroll still threw him under the bus. Like, oh yeah, he made some mistakes though. It's like, what do you have? 5 snaps? Like, what are we doing here? What is Pete Carroll doing here? This dude is making bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. And he just seems so convinced, right? I watch the pressers, and I don't know why, but I watch these pressers. And at first, it's like, okay, Pete Carroll, he's playing games with us, right? They set out to do a tank season, and he's just trying to play it off. And then it's like, no, that's not what's happening. In fact, what's happening is that Pete Carroll is very confused. He doesn't know the players he has on his roster. He doesn't understand what he's doing is not working, and he continues to do it, right? They say that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. How about doing the same thing over and over and knowing what the results are going to be and then doing it anyway? Because that's where we're at. Skywalker said, without protection, no QB on this planet is going to succeed. And our offensive line really looked bad because they did this musical chairs thing where they swapped them around, even though when Jackson Powers Johnson went to center last year, Jordan Meredith was at left guard, Dylan Parham was at right. We had Colton Miller at left tackle and DJ Glaze at right tackle. Our offensive line went from a super shitty offensive line to from that point forward ranked as like I think we were like 6th in pass pro and then 16th in the running game, right? Or something like that. It was somewhere around there. And okay, it was like, okay, well, our running backs suck. So of course they're not going to look great on that. But people kept telling me all offseason, like, yeah, but what about this offensive line? I was like, no, this offensive line is better than what you think. It is better than what it looks like on paper. And then they went and they swapped them all around. Brendan Carroll, Pete Carroll's son, is the offensive line coach, and he's doing a horrible job. And it's they proved you guys all right, and they proved me very, very wrong. Is that this offensive line was way worse than I could have expected. So why are we going to go out at pick number 6, draft Ashton Genty, and then during free agency, the only signing that we did was Alex Kappa. And we let Thayer Mumford go. And then Colton Miller gets hurt week 4, right? And they're like, let's bring on Stone Forsythe, even though he was horrible tackle. And we have a rookie tackle sitting right in there that's like, hey, we could give this guy meaningful reps. No. It's like, okay, I get it. We're still trying to win. And then we get down the line, and what it really comes down to is that even once we were eliminated from the playoffs, they still are starting players like Alex Kappa and Stone Forsythe, and our rookies are getting snubbed. Why? Why are we not doing rookie development? Right? Why do we have players like all of our 5th and 6th, 7th? Some of them didn't even make the roster. Some of them are on the practice squad, not getting played, not getting any chance. Tonka Hemingway's gotten a couple reps here and there. But really, we're at this spot where after all these bad decisions, I started looking at it at John Spytek's first draft class, and I started looking at it differently, right? Because when I see Jack Besh get targeted, he does pretty good. When I see these offensive linemen go in, they do better than expected, right? And so, okay, maybe these draft picks are better than expected, but Pete Carroll is just refusing to play them. It's like, what? Well, wait a minute. Can't we blame John Spytek for not going out there and fixing our offensive line during the offseason, free agency? What happened there? Well, John Spytek, as far as I can tell, he assumed, hey, I drafted 2 offensive linemen in the 3rd round. We're going to be okay on offensive line. And Pete Carroll and his kid messed that all up. I hope they keep Geno next year. If you're hoping that, you're probably not a Raiders fan. Probably not. Francisco said, let's go Fernando Mendoza. So Fernando Mendoza is a quarterback that I really wasn't convinced about at first. And as the season went along, and as I saw us getting closer and closer to that number 1 pick, I started looking at him more and more, right? Like, hey, let's see what we actually have here, right? And I've been watching a lot of tape on him, Dante Moore, Ty Simpson. I did watch some on Diego Pavia, even though I don't think we're going to go that route, especially not in the first round. Ty Simpson, I don't think he's a first-round quarterback. And actually, I don't know. It's looking like him and Dante Moore might not even go into the draft. Fernando Mendoza is by far the best quarterback that you could bring into the Raiders in this draft. Absolutely, right? And a couple of reasons for that. It's not just his skill, right? Because yes, he's a good quarterback. Is he Joe Burrow throwing 60 touchdowns in college? No. Is he Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson? No. Is he a Heisman winner? Yes. And there's people that are posting stuff like, we're just handing out participation trophies for the Heisman now, and blah, blah, blah. Look at these stats, right? And those are box score people. Those are box score people that look at the stat line and they say 2,900 passing yards and what is it, 32 or 33 touchdowns? They're like, wait a minute, this guy's not that good. But if you actually watch the dude's tape, this guy, he's a leader, a very good leader, right? This is a guy that, because you need a leader of men, right? Like Josh McDaniels is doing great as an offensive coordinator out there in New England, but he is horrible as a head coach because he's not a good leader. So he's a good leader. He works hard. He's got really good behavior. Yeah, he's kind of nerdy, right? But he's got really good behavior. So this is a guy that you don't have to worry about being over there in Vegas, right? So it's like, okay, if we take Fernando Mendoza number 1 overall, the main thing that people are saying is, oh, well, if he doesn't have an offensive line, it's just going to be horrible. Well, if you look at Caleb Williams, if you look at Drake May, who else got drafted without really having a line? Those are just some of the examples lately, right? Where they went, we're getting our quarterback right now. Why? Because we're high enough in the draft to get a quarterback. That's why. So, yeah, maybe he's going to struggle for a year. But if you get a rookie quarterback instead of signing a Geno Smith or trading for Joe Burrow, a lot of people are talking about that. And Joe Burrow is an amazing quarterback, but he doesn't really want to play, and he's injury prone, and he has a ginormous contract, and it would take a shit ton of draft capital to go get him. I don't think we're in the running for that. And so it's like, all right, we go and we draft this dude, and then we allocate the money that we have in free agency and go and get some offensive linemen. Hell, if you want to mess around with draft capital, go trade for an offensive lineman. You probably pick one up for a whole lot less than you'd pick up a quarterback, right? I see a couple of free Henry Ruggs in the chat, man. And free Henry Ruggs I saw a thing that he just graduated from Alabama finally with a 4.0. I don't know. It's a big one, right? Ooh, that's another one, Manny. He said, got a full-size authentic helmet with Tim Brown autograph. Message me if interested. Oh, you trying to sell some shit. But, what really happened, man, is I saw a post where Tim Brown took a picture with Fernando Mendoza next to the Heisman Trophy. And somebody had commented, like, did you whisper to him, Raiders? And he said, I did, right? Now, if we really take a look at what Fernando Mendoza does, he's intelligent, right? If you look at the interviews, right? And that's one thing that I always love to watch when I'm looking at players that, are coming out in the draft or things like that. How do they interview, right? Because, okay, like last year I was saying I liked Shedeur Sanders, right? I liked Shedeur Sanders because of his play style. And I thought, this is a guy that actually it might get to the NFL and really fight for his spot. But his interviews, I hate him. I absolutely hate the way he interviews, right? And people pull the race card when it comes to that, and they're like, oh, they just hate on it because it's like, no, it's about his attitude. It's about the way that he talks, right? It's like that doesn't really, it doesn't rub me the right way, right? If we look at like Nate Hobbs was a player that was on the Raiders, right? Several years, and I absolutely love Nate Hobbs. Nate Hobbs, the only problem with him is he was injury prone. Besides that, I love Nate Hobbs, but every time they'd interview him, I'm like, what is he talking about? Like, what is he talking about? One of the things that I really don't like about Diego Pavia, right? Even though he's from my home state and I'm really rooting for the kid, his attitude. He has a shitty attitude, man. And when you have that kind of shitty attitude, it creates a ripple effect, right? When you have somebody like Fernando Mendoza that when he interviews, he's very, very positive, right? He's very uplifting. He's not like, oh yeah, it's all me and I'm this big old badass, right? He's like, no, it's like I have the right people in my corner, like my team. We rallied together. We did this together. And I love that we mentality, right? Because football is a team sport. You can't just go out there as a quarterback, especially as a rookie quarterback with no offensive line and just be like, you know what, I'm gonna play some hero ball and I'm gonna show y'all why I won this Heisman. Like, that's not gonna work, right? Like, people's careers can end like that. Like, really, you need somebody that's gonna be able to work with that we, right, and build, right? Somebody that can kind of be the yin and yang with Max Crosby, right? Because Max Crosby is that for our defense, and we need that for our offense. See, and 4409, look, if we get the first overall pick, we should trade back and load up on pick and go O-line. The problem with that is who's going to throw the ball. Because I've looked at that, right? I've been doing a ton of mock drafts. Right? And when I look at this, it's like, okay, like if we trade back, there's scenarios where you could trade back. If we're at number one, we trade back a little bit. We could still pick up a Dante Moore and then also get an offensive lineman in the first round. And that's amazing. That's amazing. But if we don't get a quarterback, right? And I'm not really thoroughly convinced on Dante Moore. I like his play. I think he's a good quarterback. I can't like picture it, right? I can't envision him going to the Raiders and it just being like this fit. The way that he interviews is very like, I don't know, man. I only watched 2 interviews on him, right? And so I'm still doing some research, right? But in those interviews, it seemed like he wasn't very confident or like focused or like, like driven, and that scares me because the last time we drafted a quarterback in the first round, the dude wasn't driven, right? He wasn't watching tape. He got lazy when he got to the NFL. And part of the biggest thing that you want to look for when you're drafting a first round pick is this guy going to put in the work? Is this guy going to really, really go out there and become a better player when he gets to the NFL, right? Bill Curtis said, Indiana Hoosier grad here. Let's go get Mendoza. And that's what I'm all about, right? Is that Mendoza is a guy, if you look at his college career, yeah, he doesn't have those flashy stats, but what he has is progression. He has very solid progression as he goes along. And then he got to the Hoosiers, who, yeah, they won 11 games the year before he got there, right? And the year before that, they only won 3 games. And so this was a team that, they hadn't won a Big Ten championship since like the 60s. And it's like, okay, I like this. Anthony, which QB doesn't look driven? I felt like Dante Moore didn't present to me in interviews as a very driven quarterback, right? Like he seemed very kind of chilling, right? Like, oh, I'm chilling, yeah, it's good, and he kind of gave me that vibe, right? And I'm gonna do some more research, right? Because I don't just get to a point where it's like I've made up my mind and that's it, right? I'm a guy that I could be up here saying all this great stuff about tanking and Fernando Mendoza and all this stuff, right? And then as I get new information, I'm very, very willing to go ahead and change my opinion based on new facts. Anthony, yeah, same. I didn't like Diego's reaction to losing the Heisman. Man, that really upset me, man. Even my wife was like, man, if that was our son, I'd be so disappointed. So disappointed, right? And then there's this thing, man, where I get it, right? Because I'm from New Mexico. So I know how people are in Albuquerque, bro. Albuquerque. Don't call it Albuquerque for no reason, right? But like his brother is getting kicked out of games and getting arrested at games, and they kind of attributed that to like their upbringing in Albuquerque. And it's like, bro, like for one, like come on, man, like we already got a bad enough name over here. You know what I'm saying? But like I don't know, man. I don't like that whole thing, And so, yeah, Fernando Mendoza, he's kind of a nerd. That's all right. Because we need somebody that's going to be on good behavior, somebody that's going to be focused, somebody that's going to be driven. And then, it doesn't hurt that, like, to have, he's only the second Hispanic Heisman Trophy winner, right? And the last one was Plunkett, right? So, I mean, Raider Nation and Hispanic following, that's another thing. I get that, but really what it comes down to, man, is that, like, he strikes me as a humble kid that is going to get to the league and remain focused and grow. And he been that boy. He reminds me of Drake May. And it's funny that you say that, right? Because that's a realization that I came to, I want to say yesterday. I was like, I was watching some tape on him, and I was like, because I was trying to compare, like, okay, like he's not one of these quarterbacks like, like Jaden Daniels throwing over 40 touchdowns and things like that. And it's like, well, because there's a lot of noise out there about, like, well, in any other draft, he wouldn't even be a first rounder and all these things, right? And when I look at it, it's like, he doesn't have to have the flashy stats. The way he plays, the tape that he puts out there, and the fact that they went 13-0, it's like, these are big things, right? And so, like, Drake May was somebody I was comparing the stats to, and it's like, okay. And so I started looking at some of Drake May's tape again, and it's like, you know what, man? Like, I do see a lot of similarities there. And so I also see the similarity of that, if we were to get Fernando Mendoza, we're probably not going to the playoffs next year. And that's okay. Right? Drake May didn't. And then they went out there and they got their Mike Vrabel, and they brought in Josh McDaniels. They put some pieces together. They gave him an O-line. And then all of a sudden, Patriots are back in it, man. I see Fernando Mendoza, like, he's not at his prime. Like, sometimes, like, there's like a college quarterback and they're coming out and it's like they're all the buzz, and then they get to the NFL and then it's just kind of like they just kind of fizzle and fall off. It's like, when you look at something like that happen, I think that's like part of the problem when somebody spikes so high early on, is that to sustain that isn't necessarily something that's going to be feasible. And so if you have somebody that's steadily progressing, okay, cool. He did great his last year in college, won the Heisman. We'll see where they go in the playoffs, and then gets to the NFL. I could see him having a decent rookie year, not super flashy. People are going to be like, see, he wasn't worth the number one pick, da-da-da. And then I could see him in year 2, year 3, year 4 really becoming that guy, because he's intelligent, he's smart, he's a guy that he sees the field very well. And then he's got the measurables, man. He's 6'5". So this is like a quarterback that's as tall as Justin Herbert, right? There's a lot of things to like about this kid, man. There's a lot of things. Yeah, the Jets are only getting Mendoza if the Giants or the Titans end up with the number one pick, and then they trade out of it and they trade to the Jets, because the Jets already messed up by winning. Fell back to pick number 5 over here, pick number 5. Which, honestly, I really have this feeling, and you guys, like, clip this or whatever you want to do, take your receipts. I think that Dante Moore is going to end up on the Jets. I really, really do. Which is unfortunate for him, because every time the Jets get a quarterback, it does not go well. Jay Wiley, what about AOC? We've had several regimes that have just shown that they are unwilling to play AOC. I really hope that AOC does not see the field for the rest of the year because honestly, right now, Aiden O'Connell gives us the best chance to win, and I don't want to win. We've passed that, right? We've passed the point of wanting to win. A consolation prize of beating Garner Minshew and the Chiefs, not worth it. Consolation prize of, we took down the Texans, not worth it, right? Joe V says Dante Moore is not the answer. Well, and he can go be not the answer for the Jets. Joey, the problem is that I don't think that Pete Carroll is in on a tank if they are intentionally tanking. I could see a world where, maybe Spytek and Brady or, any of those kind of people might be like, hey, we want to tank out and get a quarterback. I could see that. I could even see them like bringing in pieces that they knew were not going to do well, like a Pete Carroll, like a Geno Smith. And then they're like, let's go ahead and put these out there, roll it out there. Pete's going to think he's going to win, and then they're going to lose, right? Could be. What are the chances Giants take a QB? They're going to stick with Jackson Dart, man. Jackson Dart was playing really, really good, and then he started losing all his weapons. He beat Russell Wilson out of a job out there. They selected him in the first round, and I think that they're going to go ahead and stick with him. Yeah, the problem with Jackson Dart is that he plays reckless. That is true. So you're saying there's a chance we can get Mendoza. Yes, we can get Mendoza, but we have to lose out. We absolutely have to lose every single game. And that's all we have to do, right? We don't need the stars to align. It's like, well, if we lose every game and then these people win and these people win, then we can get it. Like literally all we have to do is lose. That's all we got to do. Because the Giants are the only ones drafting in front of us, and we play the Giants in 2 weeks. And then if we lose to the Giants, they fall back to pick number 5 probably or something like that, and we're going to move up to number 1. And having the number 1 pick is good even if you don't want Mendoza. Because not only do you have your pick of the litter, right, but you could trade back, you could get your quarterback. There's a lot of moves that you could do. Ben, who do you want the Raiders to go with in the draft? I guess you just got in, Ben, coming from a Broncos fan. So Mendoza, we want Mendoza, man. We absolutely want Mendoza. And that way the Broncos can have the worst quarterback in the division. Bo Nix he's a dog, man. He's actually a lot better than I ever thought he was going to be. I really was like, I was actually glad when the Broncos took Bo Nix. I was like, so good, man, because now the Broncos are going to suck. And I was wrong about that. Now, you guys aren't good because of Bo Nix, but the dude has that dog in him, right? And he don't give up. He's stubborn. So he's a problem. Broncos are a problem right now. Yeah, and if the development on him goes as planned and he turns into a really good QB, then we're in trouble. Because the Broncos roster is stacked right now. Sean Payton has them boys playing good. So as much as I don't want to see the Broncos at the top of the division, I'm glad it's not the Chiefs. Glad it's not the Chiefs. But, I don't forget the fact that before Patrick Mahomes landed on the Chiefs, Broncos were the team that I hated in the division. I didn't really care about the Chiefs that much. I didn't really care about the Chargers. So there's that. At least we agree on something. Yeah, so you guys, I've already been on for an hour. Sorry, it's almost 8 p.m. over here, man. I'm going to spend some time with my family before I got to go to bed. Working 2 jobs in the daytime. That's how it is, man. We on the grind. But we'll see you guys. I'll be live for the game against the Texans. So keep an eye out for me. I'll be live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, TikTok. I hope to see you guys there. Like always, I love you, nation. I'll catch you on the next one.